Hi everyone, today I'm doing an interview with Matt Kohn, who is the blogger behind A Different Hunger. Matt describes himself as a thrill seeker, world traveler, fitness fanatic, and aspiring world changer. Today he's going to share some ideas on positive psychology and hopefully share with us some insights that will help you become happier and more successful as an engineer and an entrepreneur. Hi Matt, and thanks for agreeing to do an interview with us today.
Hey George, yep, great to be here. How you doing?
I'm going good, man. I'm going good. Just quickly, from what I understand, positive psychology, it's rather a new field, and I know a lot of the followers here at EcoFounder are probably new to the idea of positive psychology. So, would you mind giving us just a quick description of what it's all about?
Yeah, good question. So basically, the way I view positive psychology is in traditional psychology, people would kind of view it as what's wrong with you, where are your deficiencies, and how can we remedy them? Whereas positive psychology kind of flips that, and it really focuses on what are you doing right, what are you doing well, and how can you do more of that and improve upon various aspects of your life to have a higher quality of living. So again, both very different methods of approaching things, but one of the reasons why I love positive psychology is again because it's based on things that make you thrive, and it's all about determining what those things are, and it's just a really cool way of looking at things. And not only that, but they have also done studies in which uh, various practices of meditation and mindfulness, and also just simply thinking about things differently, not only improves your kind of outlook on life, but it also rewires the architecture of your brain. So it's fascinating stuff, and I came across it about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and ever since then I just can't get enough of it. So in a nutshell, I would say that that's my definition, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm kind of new to it as well. I've heard a little bit about positive psychology, and really interested in, yeah, like you say, it's basically the psychology of thriving.
Hmm.
Okay, okay. So from what I understand, much of positive psychology looks at the philosophy of both happiness and success. Um, so would you please be able to tell us a little bit more about how these two are related or interrelated?
Yeah. So I always refer back to this TED talk by Sean Acker, um, which is it's called the Happiness Advantage, I believe. Uh, the Happy Secret to Better Work.
Okay,
And
cool.
in the talk, I mean, it's pretty much probably the best TED talk I've seen. But he gives a breakdown of what positive psychology is, and also what we've been doing wrong in regards to that. So one of the examples he mentions is that our formula for success is completely backwards in regards to positive psychology and um, science. So for example, a lot of people think okay, I need to work harder to get a good job, to make a lot of money, and then become happy. Whereas what he suggests and what a lot of positive psychology suggests is that first you must find happiness to find success. So instead of continually striving to work harder and land a nice job, get nice things, and then make a lot of money, and then finally become happy. First, you really need to learn how to be happy and satisfied and content with your current situation. Um, and that really comes from, it's really an internal thing. It's not an external thing, because what studies have shown is that our external our external factors such as where we go to school, where we live, what we look like, how much money we make, et cetera, really play into a very small percentage of our overall satisfaction and well-being, whereas the internal factors such as how you respond to stress, how you view yourself, how you view different situations, that is, I think it was 70 to 80%. It accounts for our well-being and satisfaction. So it really, in order to be successful, you need to somehow first be content and satisfied with your current situation. And from that, it will not only obviously impact your personal well-being and satisfaction, but also your career successes. And that's what Sean refers to as the happiness advantage, because at positive, our brain functions exponentially better than it does at negative or neutral. So that's basically what I have learned regarding happiness and success. So, and it's something that really seems kind of simple, but a lot of people they aren't, I would say they're just not aware of this new field and findings such as that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you say, it's putting the goalpost within your reach for success.
Exactly.
Okay. I heard a interesting concept, which is the idea of the winner's effect. Is that something you've come across as well? It's like an upward cycle where you have you believe in yourself first. That's the first part. So it's like that internal fulfillment that you're talking about, and then that leads to more success, which leads to more belief in yourself, and it goes up in like an upward cycle. Is that something you might be able to experience or benefit from, as if you're really looking to have that internal fulfillment?
Yeah. So I'm not exactly familiar with that term, but again, everything you said pretty much aligns with what I've read and heard about and studied in positive psychology. So yeah, I mean, again, it really all begins with the internal.
Mm-hmm.
Just your ability to see the world in a positive light as opposed to negative. So another example that Sean mentions in his video is that an exercise as simple as writing down 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of each day. It's a very simple thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually changes the way that you begin to view and perceive your surroundings. So if you're always seeing the negative in things, the glass is half empty, then that's going to contribute to your beliefs. Whereas once you begin to start being able to scan the world for the good and the positive things, then you're training your brain to do the exact same thing, which will in turn turn into beliefs. And in psychology, there's a term called the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And also the confirmation bias, which is slightly different, but very similar. And basically what those mean is that whatever we hold true in our brain, whether consciously or subconsciously, we will make that happen. Again, it could be, let's say, I'm a terrible public speaker. So, and let's say you have to go give a public speech or something like that. If you truly believe that you're a bad public speaker, chances are you're going to either, 1, consciously make mistakes, or 2, kind of subconsciously do different things that makes that belief hold true. So it's just little kind of, I don't know if you want to call them like hacks, like positivity hacks, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just simple stuff like that that really goes a long way, and it really just starts with you know, small incremental steps. For example, writing down 3 things you're grateful for
Right,
each day. So
right.
yeah, I mean, again, it's simple stuff, but it's very useful and it pays off big time. So
For sure. And it really, to be honest, Matt, you really come across as a naturally happy guy.
yeah.
Um, but would you mind just telling us a little bit about your own sort of personal journey and how positive psychology has really helped you in your life?
Yeah, sure. So I yeah, I mean, I think I'm a happy person, I guess. I'm fortunate. I've, just graduated from a great school. I have a great family, a great background. So, I do have a lot of reasons to be happy. But again, positive psychology, again, is something that I came across several years ago when I was about a sophomore, junior in college. Um, and at that time, I was just finishing up playing baseball in college, which I really wish I would have kind of discovered positive psychology a bit earlier, because it would have helped me tremendously in positive psychology, because baseball is such a mental game. Um, but yeah, so positive psychology has just kind of added an extra way for me to see things in a different light, and give me more perspective and be more appreciative of things. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much uh, how positive psychology has impacted me. Um, I am, just getting started with a career per se, so I can't really say, oh, I went from making this much to this much because of positive psychology or anything like
Right.
that. But I'm just saying, an overall satisfaction, well-being, it definitely helps. And every day I catch myself kind of, in a stressful situation at work or something like that, and it helps me to kind of step back and be
Mm.
like, all right, so this is what's going on here. Um, this is what I think about it currently. This is what I should be thinking about it currently. So yeah, I mean, just little things like that. Because again, um, when you do educate yourself about stuff like this, it helps you analyze situations in a different way.
Mm.
Um, and again, that I think that those small things are the things that will pay off,
Mm.
a lot down the road. So
For sure.
yeah.
So it's really just changing the meaning of events that happen in your life, right? Is that sort of
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I get pissed off or upset like
right,
anyone
right.
else. But my background in psychology, I think, does help me react in a more advantageous or more beneficial way.
So
Um,
do you still get mad and road rage or?
uh, Not too bad. That's a funny thing you say that, though, because when I was in because Americans are terrible drivers, especially after going across the world. But like when I was in Thailand, there's like no traffic lights or anything really, at least none that they really pay attention to. But you'll be driving along in your little tuk tuk, which is like a 3-wheeled kind of taxi scooter type thing, for those of you guys who aren't familiar. But it's just hectic, and like there's guys coming at you from all sides, intersections with no lights and no really direction other than having driven there before. And but the thing was, there was no like honking, there was no screaming, no flicking people off, and it was just very cool to see how different cultures kind of react to different situations. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was just cool to see that. And I guess I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but
Thanks for sharing that wee story. I noticed that as well when I was in Thailand. Um, yeah, it's not so much what happens; it's how you interpret it. Is sort of
mhm.
the the maybe the link there from that story. which sort of leads us on to talking about entrepreneurs, which is something that we really talk about at EcoFounder. And one of the big things that entrepreneurs have to deal with is a high level of stress. And as well as with being an entrepreneur, you really have to be able to manage yourself before managing anyone else. And that's something I've talked about last week, actually, in a video I just finished up. But some of the qualities that we look at of successful entrepreneurs, their tenacity despite setbacks, their passion, product focus, and execution intelligence. Now, some of these attributes you've already really mentioned, as far as tenacity despite setbacks, having a lot of passion. But what do you think some of the impacts of positive psychology are for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and like you mentioned, starting your own anything is potentially very stressful, especially if it's a new venture. For example, my website, I'd never really started a website before. I'm sure, it had been stressful at times, but there's lots of other entrepreneurs who are doing much more stressful things, and their ability to cope with stress, of course, is a huge factor. There's also a TED Talk about, or from a professor, I think a PhD named Angela Duckworth, in which she, before she went to get her PhD, she was a teacher in the inner city schools, and she found that the one thing that separated the students who failed and didn't fail wasn't their IQ or their creativity or anything like that. It was their grit and their ability to persevere. So I really do think that a lot of successes in careers and entrepreneurial ventures and anything like that really comes down to how you deal with stress, which I do think is attributed very much to how you perceive your surroundings in various situations. So in regards to how entrepreneurs can benefit from positive psychology, I definitely think that's probably the biggest way. Just, seeing that you're going to fail, accepting that you're going to fail, but learning from those failures as opposed to just throwing in the towel, because, the ability to persevere and the ability to be gritty in those situations really plays such a huge role in your success. And another thing that really does play into that is being passionate about your work, because if you repeatedly fail at something and you don't really care too much about it and you're not passionate about it, then there's no incentive for you to continue to pull through, unless obviously there's financial incentives, but that as research has shown, only lasts for so long. So so yeah, definitely I would say ability to cope with stress, ability to persevere, and also being able to be passionate about your work are probably 2 to 3 of the most important ways in which positive psychology can help out entrepreneurs, at least in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something awesome that you did bring up there, was that you do go through a lot of failures as an entrepreneur. Anything that's got high risk, and just your ability to really push through that is something that's going to determine how successful you can be in the long run. So that's a really, really awesome point there. Thanks for sharing. And as far as for those that are really trying to create a movement, because at EcoFounder, we're entrepreneurs, but we're really trying to have outcomes that are for sustainability, and clean tech businesses really focus on renewable energy and making some big changes in the world. I know that's something that you do at the different hungers. You like to talk about changing the world and topics like this. Um, for engineers and scientists that are involved in the clean tech movement, what are some things that can sort of help them live in alignment with their own personal values and where they want to go? So that question was kind of muddy. What I mean is, how can people that have got these really big aspirations um, use positive psychology to sort of move towards that vision?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it's I think it's great to have huge aspirations. I think that's something that a lot of people kind of grow out of. You know, when we're little, everyone's like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And you say, you know, a movie star, a professional athlete, the president. Um, and then, you know, as you move on, people are kind of like, "Oh, that'll never happen." So our aspirations are kind of as we progress, I think society and also uh, ourselves contribute to them kind of decreasing in their kind of how radical they are. But again, you know, I think striving to do something or be someone that is very far ahead of where you are currently gives you motivation and gives you drive every single day to continue doing what you want to do. And one quote I really like is from Adam Braun, which he wrote about in his book, The Promise of a Pencil. And he said, if your dreams and aspirations aren't big enough, or sorry, I screwed that one up. We can edit this back. But so what Adam Braun said in his book, The Promise of a Pencil, and he said, if your aspirations and dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. Okay. So, I mean, I think those are very powerful words that, you know, a lot of people should internalize. And sure, you know, you can obviously not reach those very lofty expectations. But another quote I also heard, I think was from Larry Page, the Google CEO, and he says, if your aspirations are high enough, it's impossible to fail completely.
Right.
So that's another very powerful quote in which it makes total sense. So instead of, you know, kind of setting goals and aspirations that you know you're going to achieve, you know, set goals that are well out of your reach so that you can, at the very least, become better X, Y, or Z. And again, you're not going to fail completely because, again, of how high your aspirations are. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
I think so, yeah. The one thing I think that would be a good definition to make at this point is that you want to have those large aspirations. You want to have those large goals.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have your happiness set on the achievement of those goals or aspirations. And how would you describe that sort of that definition there? Like between you want to be successful, you want to have want to achieve those large aspirations you have for yourself, but you don't want to have your happiness as a goalpost. You want to achieve the happiness first, right? That's what we're saying here with positive psychology.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a really good point because a lot of people, especially when they are doing things that are very important to them and that they kind of identify themselves with, and then they go out and, you know, maybe fail at a certain project or something like that, it's very hard for them to differentiate the venture from themselves. And so they begin to view themselves kind of as a failure. So that is a very important differentiation. And there's a terminology in psychology called the growth mindset. So basically when you are, like you said, George, striving to do something or carry out a task or a project or something like that, and you fail, you can either one, say, okay, look, I failed because I wasn't good enough. And when you do that, you don't leave any room to improve. You basically are done because, again, you're attributing your failure to your ability. And when you do that, again, you don't leave any room for potential or room to improve. But the growth mindset is when you view your failure and you say, okay, look, I didn't try hard enough. I didn't put enough effort in, or, I didn't do something right, which contributed to my failure. And when you do that, you leave the door open for growth and, learning from your mistakes. And that's really, it's something that's been studied intensely, and it's something that really does contribute to your ability to react with failure and how to continually move and push forward. So, yeah, I think that's another very important part in how to kind of, identify failures and differentiate them from your own self. So
Right, yeah. So it's definitely it's a process of not identifying with failure. Is that what you're trying to say?
Say that again.
So it's a process of not identifying with failure. It's more really looking at failure and then saying, okay, that may have happened now, but it's not part of who I am.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to, kind of keep your work and yourself different. Even if your work is something you love and are passionate about, it doesn't, define who exactly you are, and that's important to keep in mind. When you are trying to attribute failures or successes. So
it's more your ability. It's really more your ability to learn and to take action. That's what you can sort of take ownership of, right? That's where you can draw your sense of self. Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Well, look, it seems like positive psychology. I know for me, after listening to you talk about it, really, there's a lot of research that can be applied to our daily lives, and I think as entrepreneurs, and I'm sure a lot of the followers here at EcoFounder will be really interested to find out some actionable steps which we can start beginning to use positive psychology in our own lives. So maybe if you could share with us just a couple of things that we could start doing. You've already shared with us the gratefulness, which is write down the 3 things at the end of the day, right? What other steps do you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think really anything that you may kind of exercise really has to do with just really being aware and putting things into perspective. For example, going back to that gratefulness example, the key is just really to be aware of, what's good, what's bad, what's maybe not so good, what's not so bad. And, for example, another possibility would be, let's say you're faced with a stressful situation at work or something comes up, instead of immediately taking action on that step and maybe, reacting based on your emotions at the time, which might not be the best and most rational reaction, just take a step back, kind of analyze the situation, just be like, okay, what's happening? Why is it happening? And think about the potential reactions and their potential outcomes before you kind of hastily react or make a decision. I think that would be one way to kind of apply those principles of awareness and gratitude if necessary. Yeah, and regarding other situations, for example, let's say you fail at work, again, just kind of applying that growth mindset to the situation and instead of giving up in the face of failure, being able to be motivated by it based on how you approach the situation, and learning that your effort may have not been there, or your effort in one aspect may have not been there. And that will, again, leave the door open for you to push through and improve in the future whenever you encounter the same or similar situation.
Wow, yeah, that definitely seems like something that would be really helpful. Monitoring your own reactions, and then you've got the gratefulness technique exercise that you mentioned as well. So those are some things that I think all of us could really use, like you say, to really improve our outlook on our lives, and also that will feed into the success we achieve. So I can really see the benefits of positive psychology, and I've learned a lot just from talking to you. So thank you for sharing all your insights with us today.
Of course.
Now, if people wanted to learn a little bit more about positive psychology and living a life of purpose, I know that that's something that you really cover at A Different Hunger. So where can people find you if they wanted to find out more?
Yeah, so like George mentioned, my website's A Different Hunger, which is differenthunger.com. There's no A there. But yeah, so if you wanted to, follow me and read up on some of the content that I put out, just go to differenthunger.com. We also have Facebook page, Google Plus page, YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter. So we're all over the place, and you can find that information on my website. And if you want to email me, it's just matt@differenthunger.com. Yeah, so that's how you can get in contact with me and learn more about my website and the awesome people that I feature on it and other stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend checking out Matt's stuff if you are interested in learning more about how psychology and positive psychology can help you in your entrepreneurial path. So thanks, Matt, for sharing that today. And as well, with all of Matt's TED videos and links, we'll have that all in the Eco-Founder post related to this video, so you can check that out in the description below. And we'll also have links to all of Matt's website, so you can check out his stuff there. So thank you very much, Matt, for joining us today. And that's all we have time for today at Eco-Founder. Thanks for watching.